By January 1943, the romanticism of the early war years had long since evaporated, replaced by the cold, hard reality of industrial-scale attrition and systemic starvation. If you are watching this, you are likely among those who understand that history isn't just made by generals on maps, but by the grit of common people surviving against the odds. So please take a moment to subscribe to Atten Recounts as we continue to document these forgotten survival stories. We are currently at a pivotal moment in the timeline where the Axis grip on Europe is tightening while Allied supply lines are stretched to their breaking point. The Victory Gardens of 1942 were no longer a hobby. They were a biological necessity. Tonight, we are going to look past the frontline reports and examine the specific botanical lifelines that allowed civilians to endure the harshest winters of the century. This isn't just about gardening. It is about the strategic deployment of calories and nutrients when the global food system had utterly collapsed. The humble potato served as the underground fortress of European nutrition. The white potato was arguably the most significant tactical asset for a civilian in early 1943. While grain elevators and flour mills were easy targets for aerial bombardment or military seizure, the potato remained hidden beneath the soil, protected from fire and theft. In occupied territories where the German hunger plan sought to divert all resources to the Wehrmacht, a hidden patch of potatoes could mean the difference between life and death. For the modern survivalist, the lesson here is about caloric density per square foot. The potato provides essential carbohydrates and vitamin C, which was critical in preventing scurvy during a time when fresh citrus was non-existent. To replicate this today, one should focus on hilling techniques, which involve mounding soil around the stems as they grow to force the plant to produce more tubers. By utilizing vertical space through potato towers or even repurposed burlap sacks, a modern practitioner can produce hundreds of pounds of food in a footprint no larger than a closet. Rutabagas and turnips became the bitter endurance fuel of the Eastern Front. While the potato was the preferred staple, the winter of 1943 saw the rise of the hunger tuber, primarily the rutabaga and the turnip. These crops are exceptionally cold-hardy and can often be harvested from frozen ground when other plants have turned to mush. In Germany and occupied Poland, these vegetables were often the only items available in the markets, leading to what many survivors recalled as the Rutabaga winter experience, even years after the First World War's precedent. The strategic value of the rutabaga lies in its storage life. Unlike more delicate greens, a rutabaga stored in a cool, dark root cellar can last for 6 months without any modern refrigeration. For those looking to apply this historical knowledge, the focus should be on the root cellar method. You can create a functional microcellar by burying a perforated galvanized steel trash can in the earth, layering your root crops with dry sand or straw. This natural geothermal regulation keeps the vegetables just above freezing, mimicking the exact conditions that kept families fed in 1943. Cabbage and fermented sauerkraut provided the essential probiotics for a failing immune system. By January 1943, medicine was as scarce as meat. Maintaining gut health and a functional immune system was a matter of survival, and the humble cabbage was the primary tool for this task. Cabbage is a heavy producer that thrives in the waning light of winter. However, its true power was unlocked through fermentation. By shredding cabbage and packing it with salt, civilians created sauerkraut, a shelf-stable superfood packed with lactic acid bacteria. This was not a culinary preference, but a biological strategy to preserve vitamin C and provide probiotics that help the body extract every possible calorie from a limited diet. To apply this today, one should master the dry salting fermentation method. Use roughly 3% salt by weight of the cabbage, bruise the leaves until they release their juices, and submerge them under their own brine in a stone crock or glass jar. This process creates a food source that requires zero electricity to maintain and remains edible for an entire year. Foraged greens and wild dandelions acted as the hidden multivitamin of the urban survivor. When the official rations failed, the serious survivors of 1943 turned to what most people today consider weeds. Dandelion greens, chicory and wild mustard were vital because they appeared earlier than cultivated crops and provided iron and vitamin A that were missing from a bread and potato diet. In cities like London and Leningrad, the weed was a lifeline. Even the roots of the dandelion were roasted and ground to serve as a coffee substitute, providing a necessary psychological boost during the dark winter months. For the modern enthusiast, the practical application is botanical literacy. Learning to identify the edible map of your local environment ensures that even if a garden fails or a supply chain breaks, the landscape remains a resource. One should start by identifying the 5 most common edible wild plants in their specific climate zone and practicing the proper leaching techniques to remove bitterness from roots, turning a nuisance plant into a viable calorie source. The legacy of the 1943 survival garden is a blueprint for modern self-sufficiency. The civilians who survived January 1943 did so because they understood that self-reliance is not an event, but a continuous process of management and preservation. They didn't just grow food, they managed a closed-loop system where every scrap was composted, every seed was saved, and every calorie was accounted for. This history teaches us that the most resilient systems are those that are decentralized and hidden. As we look back at these techniques, it is clear that the botanical strategies of World War II are just as relevant today for anyone serious about food security. We must treat our gardens not as a hobby, but as a critical infrastructure. If you found this deep dive into historical survival valuable, ensure you share this video with others who value real, actionable history. And don't forget to subscribe to Atten Recounts for more in-depth reports on the grit and ingenuity of the past.